responsibility of someone new, and I could.
SP something, something, something.
Net dot.
Okay, we're on. We're live.
Okay, everybody, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the City Council for December 21st of 2020. That's all. In accordance with LB 898, please be advised that there's a copy of the Opens Meetings Act, which is posted in the back of the chamber by the northwest door. Let us all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The order of the business of the City Council is follows. The clerk will call the items listed on the agenda under the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on an item should come forward after the clerk reads them. The applicant and those in favor should speak first, then those opposed. The applicant may then make one short rebuttal. Each speaker should begin by stating their name, address, and whether you're speaking in favor or in opposition to the item. Testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. After all public hearings, the council will vote on resolutions and items listed under third reading. On the second and last Mondays, which is tonight, immediately prior to the adjournment, anyone may speak on any issue not on the agenda for that date nor planned for a future agenda. Will the clerk please call the first item of business?
Due to the Christmas and New Year's holidays, the City Council will not meet on Monday, December 28, 2020, and Monday, January 4th, 2021. Public comment, which is held after the last item on the agenda, is being offered in person in the council chambers or via webinar for the City Council meeting being held on December 21st, 2020. For those who wish to testify by webinar, you must have registered with the City Clerk's office to participate. Contact the City Clerk's office at 402-441-7436 or by email at cityclerk@lincoln.ne.gov. The City Clerk's office must have been notified by 12 p.m. the day of the meeting. In order to register, please provide your name, address, email address, and contact number. If you have any concerns you wish to express to City Council, please email them to councilpacket@lincoln.ne.gov. But if you still wish to appear in person on an item on the agenda, you may come to the City County Building at 555 South 10th Street. You'll be asked to wait in the Bill Luxford studio or in the hallway until your item is called. Then you can enter the council chambers and come up to the podium. After you are finished speaking, you can exit to the chambers through the door to your immediate left. Our first item on our agenda is our consent agenda, sections 1 and 2.
Is there anybody here that'd like to come forward on any of the agenda items of 1 and 2? Ms. Esposito?
Hi, I'm Mickey Esposito, Senior Policy Advisor to Mayor. Nice to see everyone.
To your face.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back. This is for the DEC board appointment, and it's my understanding that I'll be hopefully appointed to serve with Councilwoman Ward as a mayor's liaison.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Esposito?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Proud to be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming down.
Of course.
Is there anybody else that'd like to come forward at this time on any item for 1 or 2? And I'll just say thank you. Nobody's back there. Well, I'd just like to say thank you, Tammy, for being our representative on the District Energy Corporation.
My pleasure.
Looks like you got stuck for another 2 years. I mean, you're lucky to be on for another 2 years.
Honored.
Honored.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seeing nobody else, we can call the public hearing portion closed. We can go ahead and vote on the items. Sony?
Item 1A is appointing Mickey Esposito to the District Energy Corporation for a term to expire December 31st, 2021, introduced by Washington.
So moved. Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold. Any questions, comments, thoughts on Mickey? No. Okay, please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1B is reappointing Delonte Johnson and Kyle Johnson to the Nebraska Capital Environs Commission for terms to expire January 9th, 2024, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold.
2024? Like forever.
Any comments or questions or thoughts? Please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1C, reappointing Tammy Ward to the District Energy Corporation for a term to expire December 31st, 2022, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold. Hearing no objections,
You never know.
please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1D, reappointing Lucas Sabalka and Andy Hunziker to the Lincoln Electric System Administrative Board for terms to expire December 31st, 2023, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Christensen. Any other comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1E, approving an on-call professional service task order agreement between the city and Alfred Benish and Company to provide preliminary engineering design services for the Adams Street 36th and 49th rehab project, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Christensen. Any comments, questions? This is a good thing, more roads. Okay, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 1F, approving a 3-year service maintenance agreement between the city and Accelerated Technology Laboratories, Inc. for a laboratory information management system to be used by the Lincoln Water System Ashland Water Treatment Plant Laboratory, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Christensen. Any comments, questions? Please call the roll.
Science.
Christensen,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 2A and 2B is introduced by Christensen.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Schob. Any comments or questions? See none, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
So that takes care of our consent items. Moving on to public hearing for liquor resolutions.
Item 4A is application of Red Strike, Inc., doing business as Sun Valley Lanes to expand its Class C liquor license to add 3 outdoor areas measuring approximately 160 by 90 feet, 100 feet by 50 feet, and 50 feet by 90 feet at 321 Victory Lane.
And basically what we've requested is that unless are issues, we're not asking these applicants to appear. And these are all good.
Okay.
And we just gave them this extra space
Yes.
a few meetings ago.
Yep. So, Mr. Chair, since there's nobody here to testify, I move approval of items 4A through C.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve items 4A through 4C, and there's nobody out there, correct? Okay. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Now we're next to Section 5, Public Hearing Resolutions. Item 5A is Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20001, Application of the Urban Development Director to amend the 2040 Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan to adopt the City of Lincoln Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan.
Is there anybody who'd like to come forward to speak on this item? Dan or Carrie?
Well, since Dan Marvin, Urban Development, since this was continued public hearing, I was going to see if there was anybody in the public that was wanting to come forward and speak. I'm happy to answer any questions, or we'll see if this room's fairly empty, so we'll see if
Yeah,
anybody
we got
wants
somebody
to
back
talk.
there. We got some.
Okay.
Director Carey, did you want to speak on anything? You're just here for help. Okay. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to come forward to speak on this item?
Well, good evening, everyone. Chairman McGinnis, members of the council, my name is Kyle Fisher, appearing on behalf of the Realtors Association of Lincoln. For the record, we are at 8231 Beechwood Drive. Thanks for the opportunity to come back one more time tonight. I ended my comments last week with some thank yous, and I want to begin this week by reaffirming those public appreciations of your work. A majority of the members of this council were very receptive and held off on any decisions on this plan so that we could take one more week to do some review. And I think there's been some very productive conversations during the past 7 days talking about the housing continuum and how maybe we can do more to affect affordable housing in Lincoln. I want to be clear and on the record as to what we talked about with an amendment last week and what it would do. It would simply strike language that states suburban-style housing shouldn't be considered when talking about new lot and site development incentives. That's on page 84 in the plan. You can't get to this plan's goal without building more housing, because housing is what's in short supply right now. We must build, and we must find a way to lower lot and development costs for the end user. An amendment wouldn't negatively impact anything else in this plan. And while we are very appreciative and very supportive of any other amendment to this that may come forward that calls for more focus on housing affordability in the 2050 comp plan, we would still argue that you can't put this plan, as it is, in the 2050 comp plan and then hope to have a discussion later about how the city can incentivize building of housing. The language can't conflict between the two, and that's the only reason we're asking you to strike this language in the current plan. I do want to address one other thing that's come up in our discussions. It isn't too late to do this. I think there's been some talk about that, and I don't really think it's out of bounds to ask for a change at this point. We're at a public hearing and a public process before you, and I certainly think that now is as good a time as any to take a look at it again and make any changes that may be needed to be made. The Realtors, I want to say again, finally, in close, the Realtors of Lincoln have been engaged in this process. They provided public feedback at all the times we've been asked to provide feedback. We'd just like a little more consideration in the final plan. We ask for your support of this amendment, and regardless of any outcome today, we're ready to help. And so I've made that commitment to several of you that the Realtors of Lincoln aren't going away anytime, and just hope that we can move forward. So thanks for an additional week to talk about this, and certainly appreciate hearing from you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any questions or comments for Kyle? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holiday.
Find an open seat.
Sure, I need to change which podium I'm at. Good evening. My name is Ann Post. I'm an attorney with Baylor Evans Law Firm. I'm here today on behalf of the Home Builders Association of Lincoln. An address is 1248 O Street, Suite 600. But I'm here today to support the proposed amendment that has been discussed this week, and a plan that incorporates that amendment. Now, I understand, so I was here last week to make a few comments on the wider plan. That testimony hasn't changed, but you were all there, so unless you ask, I don't feel the need to revisit it now. But why is this amendment so important? It's all of, I think Director Marvin said last week, it's all of about 30 words. Why does it matter so much to us? Why would that swing from can't support to support this plan? And that's because while it's only about 30 words, it's a recognition that the work doesn't end here. It doesn't end at affordable housing at 80% of AMI. As written, the plan states that for households making the area median income, additional development costs, housing costs, read housing costs, can be absorbed. Therefore, all efforts should be targeted at affordable housing. However, for every $1,000 that you increase the price of a new home, that prices out 190 people out of the market for that home. Now, that's based on a 2019 study from the National Home Builders Association. And while I can agree that there's been a lot that's changed between that 2019 study and 2020, where we are today, the point is that for every $1,000 you increase the cost of housing, there are people that you're pricing out of the market, whether that's at 80% of AMI or 100% of AMI. And in a community, housing is a system. If we focused on one segment to the exclusion of others, we risk cutting rungs out of the ladder that make it so much harder for people to move from that first rung of the ladder up to the next one, which then creates room for more people to move on the ladder. And that's really our concern. So this is a small change, but we feel it's essential to recognize. So let me back up. We recognize that this is an affordable housing plan. It's not an attainable housing plan. It's not an overall housing plan for Lincoln. But that's why this small change can be so important to this affordable housing plan, to recognize this is an affordable housing plan, but the work doesn't stop at 80% of AMI. So therefore, that's why we're asking your support of this amendment. That's why this amendment is so important to the home builder support. And with that, I will ask for your support of it and take any questions that you have.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Post?
Thank you.
Guess not. Thank you. Do we have anybody else out there who'd like to come forward? Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Good evening. Lynn Fisher with Great Place Properties, and I'm currently the president of the Real Estate Owners and Managers Association here in Lincoln. And so, first of all, thank you very much for all your hard work. And the plan is one that I've had a chance to read over all through the progress that's been made, and I have the executive summary here that I wanted to quote from. And as a trade organization, we were involved fairly early on and invited to some of the study groups about affordable housing. And so I remember lots of conversations in those early meetings where I reminded the attendees, and I'd like to remind you all, something you know, but I just want to remind you that it is small operators and small investors, mom and pop folks like our members, who actually provide the affordable housing here in Lincoln. And it's the free market that allows that to happen. And so private investment, private investors, mom and pop operators, the free market, that's where affordable housing comes from. And so just a reminder that in almost every case, when the government at any level tries to have some effect and do good and try to have a good intention about improving the lot of folks looking for affordable housing, in almost all cases, any government action ends up making it worse, raising the cost of housing. And this can be, seen in examples of the extreme in New York City and San Francisco in our country, where housing is not affordable specifically because of the government taking so much control over the market that they've created the unintended consequence of virtually the worst affordability problem that you can imagine where it's the free market in places like Houston, Texas, where you can actually afford to rent. And as you know, reading the news, lots of corporations are moving to Texas from California for those very reasons. In the Chapter 1 of the Market Analysis Executive Summary from the city's website, just a few facts that are quoted here on the executive summary that I wanted to point out. Lincoln's housing market is affordable for most households. So that's a statement of fact from the analysis. Median income citywide is keeping pace with the region. Over the next decade, Lincoln will need an additional 17,000 units to support projected population growth. And it says this rate is slightly above the average rate over the past 10 years. In other words, the market provides what is needed. This is not a crisis. The market will provide. We're only slightly below what's projected to be needed. And as we all know, projections and predictions are often, in almost all cases, wrong. So we don't know exactly what we're going to need for housing units in the affordable range or any other range, but the market left to its own devices and left to private investors will provide those affordable units. So again, I want to thank you and appreciate the fact that RIOMA, which is the acronym for our association, has been named in the Path Forward synopsis here as far as steps to be taken going forward. And we look forward to working with the city and with all the different agencies, keeping in mind, though, that we're going to advocate for private investment and the free market to be the solution to the housing needs going forward. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Fisher? Seeing none, thank you for coming down. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Anybody else at this point? Okay, seeing none, we can move on. And no, we'll have a discussion when we come to voting. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to make certain that these letters that came in go to the record.
They all are part of the record.
Okay, then I won't, but I wasn't sure.
Did you want to come back
when
forward
they get
for any
put
questions
in.
do we have any questions for Dan or for?
Is, Councilwoman Washington, are you referring to the letter from south of downtown on December 18th and the one from the Collective Impact Lincoln of
Yes, they had
December
specifically,
18th?
they had specifically asked for the letter
Yeah.
to be placed on the record, and I just wanted to make certain that
Any letter sent to the council packet is automatically part of the public record.
I'm not sure they were sent to council packet, but they were sent to each of us individually.
I think they were sent to the, okay.
They were sent to us individually, asking to be placed on the record,
Okay.
and I did
Okay,
not
we'll
see
make
them in
sure that
council
it becomes
packet.
part of the director's packet.
Yeah,
And so they're all in there on the public.
thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none, let's move on.
Item 5B, approving the labor contract between the City of Lincoln and the Lincoln M-Class Employees Association for a term effective August 20th, 2020 through August 31st, 2021.
Good afternoon, Council. Doug McDaniel, Human Resources. We've got two labor agreements to present to you this evening. The first is LMCEA. I gave you a synopsis earlier, but I'll run through that just for a refresher. This is a one-year contract. There's no increase to the pay plan. A one-time lump sum payment in the amount of 0.75% to the employee's effective annualized wage payment made within 30 days after approval. The pay range changes. We had four pay range changes in the negotiations. Those are listed as well, from engineer to M2 to M3, senior engineer from M4 to M5, animal control manager from M1 to M3, purchasing agent from M5 to M6. We remove a cap on what was known as family sick leave, and there's no cost implication to that. As I said, this is a one-year contract.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. McDaniel? Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody else out there that would like to come forward to speak on this item? I see none. We can move on to the next.
Item 5C is approving the labor contract between the City of Lincoln and the Lincoln Firefighters Association for a term effective August 20th, 2020 through August 31st, 2021.
Similar to the previous contract, there's no increase to the pay plan. The one-time lump sum payment to this union in the amount of 1% of the employee's effective annualized wage, payment to be made within 30 days of final approval. We removed the cap on the family sick leave, no cost implications to that change. Vacation carryover from the 2020 to 2021 was increased from 72 hours to 108 hours due to COVID-19. Again, it's a one-year duration.
Any questions from Mr. McDaniel? Any questions about budget issue on this? Unless you want to come forward.
Brandon Kaufman, Finance Director. So just in case there are any questions in regards to the budget implications, so in the council's infinite wisdom, at the end of the budget process, you set aside $441,000 in contingency for things that we knew might come up over the year. So that'll be one of the things, and within that resolution, you authorize the finance director to transfer those funds accordingly. So this would be something that we would end up transferring those funds for. So as all these contracts come through and get settled, once we get to the end, we'll go look at moving appropriations to the appropriate departments.
Yes, Councilperson Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kaufman, all of the 1% lump sums we've seen, or the 3/4% lump sum, or this leave, does that all fit within the contingency to the best of your calculations?
We are hoping that it's going to fit within the contingency. So I think we haven't seen all the contracts come through, but the ones that have come through so far, yes, they fit within that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Kaufman? Seeing none, thank you for coming down. Is there anybody in the public that would like to come forward and speak on this item? Seeing none, we can move on.
5D, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20002, application of the Planning Director to amend the 2040 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan to adopt the 33rd and Cornhusker Sub-Area Plan.
Director Carey.
Good evening, council members. David Carey, Director of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Department. Very happy to be here to bring back the sub-area plan for 33rd and Cornhusker. What I'll do is I'll give a brief overview of kind of how we got to this point and the basics of what's before you. We have Paul Barnes from the Planning Department that will provide a little bit of detail on the land use plan and the content, just to make sure that's on the record. And Chris Humphrey is also here to walk us through a brief overview of where we're at with the RTSD project for 33rd and Cornhusker. So fairly concisely give you a good overview of what we have before you, and then we'll answer any questions that you have. So we do have before you the 33rd and Cornhusker sub-area plan. This is being proposed to you for your action to consider it as a by reference going into the comprehensive plan, the 2040 comprehensive plan. There are several specific areas within the comprehensive plan that will be changed if this is approved. That is the future land use map, the commercial centers map, the mixed-use redevelopment nodes, the railroad crossings discussion in Chapter 10 with some new language, the candidate roadway capital projects map and list, and then the list of sub-area plans that we have in there already. This would be added to that list. So how we got to this point is that in 2016, there was a Planning and Environmental Linkages, or PEL, study completed, and that was acknowledging that the planning for a major safety project to deal with the at-grade crossings of the main line, BNSF rail line, in the area of 33rd Street, as well as Adams Street and then 44th Street, that there was a need to look into what might be the ultimate design of that improvement. This is a project that's come forward from the RTSD, the Railroad Transportation Safety District, and it's a significant project. That Pell study basically spurred on a discussion that it would make sense for, on the planning side, to get a better feel for this area that's going to be significantly impacted by these improvements when they happen, and that those improvements will be an opportunity for both redevelopment and strengthening of the area. And so we decided at that point that it would make sense to partner with the RTSD to get a sub-area plan conducted and then brought forward. That work was done. We were before you 2 years ago in 2018, and we had a very good plan. However, there were a lot of questions about the actual proposed preferred alignment at that point for the transportation project itself. And so at that time, it was with great wisdom that we decided to pull back the plan and do some more work. And so a lot of the work that took place since then actually was on the RTSD side, and with the community committee that was put together for that, with over 50 people actively participating in those discussions, really taking another harder look at what the preferred alternative alignment is for the major roadway improvements. And so there have been changes made to that preferred alignment, and those changes are now reflected in this sub-area plan. I do want to note, be very specific, that the sub-area plan does not adopt the actual alignment of the project.
Mm-hmm.
So if there are further changes to that design, we will come back and change the sub-area plan. This action does not drive that decision process. That's its own process, obviously a very significant project, and that will continue as well. There's a lot of work, and Chris will go into that in a minute. Some of the big changes that happen with that alignment is that the bridging of a new 33rd Street over the main line tracks will have Adams Street actually tee into it along the bridging area instead of what was referred to previously as that fish hook that went up and over Cornhusker Highway. We also are leaving open the 44th Street at grade intersection. That's something that has been discussed quite a bit in the last 6 months. And that's something that we're proposing to show in this plan now at this time. So what we are asking is that you follow up on what the Planning Commission provided us, which was a unanimous recommendation of approval of the sub-area plan. It does include a lot of guiding information about future land use. And the idea behind it is to set the stage for, we have identified a lot of great strengths for this area. And it's primarily obviously a very good transportation corridor as well as an employment area. We want to build off of that and make it better with the vision that this plan has in it. And it is very much a long-range plan. The roadway improvements will be 8 to 10 years still into the future from today. And so there's, like I said earlier, that the opportunity in this area really comes when that project happens and the redevelopment of that land can happen at that time. So I will hand it off to Paul Barnes at this time, and he's going to provide a little more detail on what that land use plan has in it, and then we'll hand it off further to Chris Humphrey. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good evening, Council. Paul Barnes with the Planning Department, and I'm here to speak a little bit in more detail on the future land use section of the sub-area plan. To give an overview, the sub-area plan itself contains many sections, and really the meat of the plan is in 49 pages titled Sub-Area Plan. And a big component of that is the future land use map and recommendations. If I could zoom out. I guess that's good. So there are about 10 recommendations tied to the future land use plan. Recommendations include adopting the plan itself, which you see on the screen. This future land use map informs all other recommendations tied throughout the sub-area plan itself. It recommends a balance of a viability of mix of uses, including industrial, commercial, and residential. It recommends creating a mixed-use environment throughout this sub-area. Recommends a range of housing types and sizes, a prioritization of nodal development at certain key intersections, recommends providing access to green spaces, establishing transition zones between differing land uses, recommends establishment of new development guidelines, and conserving the Salt Creek floodplain. I do want to note of importance, the sub-area plan, as David had noted, is a guide. By approving this, does not change zoning of this area, does not change private property rights of owners or businesses in this area, but it will be used as a guide moving forward as different development or redevelopment requests come before you. I'll get in a little bit of detail with what you see on the map, and I'll refer to some of these by color. So you'll see in brown around this would be Cornhusker Highway here. This north-south alignment is a new 33rd Street. Cornhusker Highway does intersect at 33rd at this location. So this brown color land use you see here, that's part of that nodal development that's talked about in the plan, called mixed-use nodes. You'll also see that to the north at North 33rd and Superior. Really, that is supporting development of retail, service, office, mix of commercial, and some residential uses. Higher densities at those intersections are encouraged. Next, in the light purple, which you see kind of along the extended 33rd Street and to the east, and then as a buffer to some of our residential neighborhoods, that designation is known as business or flex park, and that is inherently flexible, allowing for a mix of commercial and office uses if redeveloped. Next, in darker purple, which you'll see kind of along this area here, and then kind of on the south side of the railroad tracks, that is a designation known as light industrial. So those uses would be warehouses, light manufacturing spaces, also office, retail, and service. We do have a red color that you see here, kind of on the north side of the highway, known as commercial center or commercial corridor. Uses there would include retail, service, and office, mostly catering to visitors traveling along the Cornhusker Highway corridor or truck traffic. Mixed use residential neighborhood is next, and you see that in the yellow colors in 3 locations. Mostly that's reflecting existing land use that exists today. And then lastly, you'll see quite a bit of green. That is known as parks, recreation, and open space. This is reflective of the floodplain that exists along Salt Creek, and then we have Dead Man's Run that also comes through the area. With that, I think I'll probably turn it over to Chris Humphrey or answer any questions. Yes?
Put that map back up, please. Okay, just to be clear, so some of the centerpiece of the controversy that we had in the past was a couple businesses, Virginia's Travelers Cafe and Lincoln Tent and Awning. Could you point out on the map where they are and what colored area they're in?
So those businesses would have been, or are located, on the north side of Cornhusker Highway. They are shown in commercial corridor. I believe the controversy you're referring to was related to the transportation improvement, which would have had Adams Street, instead of paralleling the tracks and connecting to 33rd, would actually have looped across the highway and then impacted businesses on the north side, which is not shown on this plan. So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. If you want to go ahead, Jane.
Paul, there's a little bit of green running along the Cornhusker Highway. Is that meant to be a trail, or what does that signify? Is that in like a drainage area?
Are you referring to
Yep.
this area here?
Right there.
Yeah, I think that is part of a trail at that location, or a future improvement that could be done as a buffer.
Okay, thank you.
My question. So the mixed use is the brown, which would be small retail, some office, some residential, kind of a walking neighborhood. Is that what you're thinking, or more of a? I'm trying to figure out what the mixed use node is.
So if you're referring to the brown areas
Right.
at this intersection and then at this future intersection, those would actually be higher density developments. So we would want to see taller buildings, more of a mix of uses that could be commercial, office in nature, but also include some residential.
So I was looking at the I call it the brown, but it's the ground that's south of Cornhusker Highway. And east of the overpass, or west of the overpass, over to State Fair Park, where you've got the two creeks running through it. and you've
In
got
this
the
area?
large- You got the drainage area, you got the large grain elevator. You have a lot of commercial businesses.
Yes, yes.
How come that wouldn't have been a great industrial area? Because it's very isolated, and it's
Right,
hard
and-
for pedestrians to work. So I don't see where you get residential
Right.
in that area.
Yeah, and I think something to remember too is that this is a long-range plan. Think about it with our comprehensive plan and being adopted into the 2040 plan, 20 years out. This is meant to be a guide. It's not an absolute. I think that those areas do need to be flexible, and that is part of the plan and in the text. And that if something were to come forward that's somewhat different than how a mixed-use node is identified, that would definitely be still under consideration. This is not absolute.
Okay, so if someone wanted to come along and put a nice manufacturing high job
Yes.
plant right in there, you wouldn't say, no, this is supposed to be residential in the future?
Well, a lot of this doesn't impact zoning. So if it's zoned I-1 today, then those uses can continue, including, taking down a business and rebuilding something that's under the current zoning as it sits today.
And
You know
your point
my
is well
question.
taken in a sense that, sorry, just because it says mixed use and within the mixed use definition there is residential, we're not saying that it shall have residential in there. So we certainly could have a different type of development in there, but what we want to do is put it on the table as something to consider in these areas. So if something came in that didn't have residential, there would not be a hard no, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Do we have any other questions?
I will turn it over to Chris Humphreys.
Would be a hard no. Would be a no. It might not be a hard.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Humphrey. I'm the RTSD project manager for the RTSD transportation project at 33rd and Cornhusker. And I think David did a really good job of giving an overview of what the geometrics are. And the RTSD board last December had voted to move forward with Pell Modified C. That's the plan that you see reflected in the sub-area plan. And like David said, recently we have removed any improvements at the 44th Street at-grade intersection. And really, since the RTSD has voted to move forward on Pell Modified C, we have been working towards a 60% plan submittal currently. We've been working with BNSF Railroad, Nebraska Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, all to move forward into submittal of our draft environmental document. So the 60% plans in the draft environmental document will be submitted this spring, and once that goes through the reviews, we will have public hearing on the environmental document at the end of 2021. The project is still on schedule for construction in 2026, and as related to the sub-area plan, the RTSD project is coordinating with the Corps of Engineers and the Lower Platte South NRD on the Dead Man's Run flood control project. That is finishing up its hydraulic studies. And then we will begin design on that project with the Corps of Engineers and city projects and the NRD as well. So.
Yes, Councilman Christensen.
Chris, just as a reminder, tell us how much money we're talking about spending on the RTSD project.
Yeah, the preliminary estimates from the last time that we had a plan was in June of 2019. We were going to have another public meeting this June of 2020, and we obviously had to cancel that. Estimates at that time were in the $90-95 million range. Since then, we've seen construction costs go up tremendously. So with this 60% plan that will be submitted in the spring, we'll be looking at those construction cost estimates even more closely. And I think NDOT had said that they have seen over the past year, construction costs have gone up about 20% on their projects. So that's something we need to have all the funding in place and discussions with NDOT and NDOT as the funding source, working with the RTSD and the railroad, and get those agreements in place by about 2022. So right now, we have a memorandum of understanding between the RTSD and BNSF and NDOT moving forward with a commitment to the project.
Yes, Councilperson Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, thanks so much for coming down. I just want to make sure that I understand the next couple of steps in the process. You said that the environmental document is being prepared right now, and we'll have a public hearing. And can you tell me, is that an environmental assessment or an impact statement?
Yeah, currently the project is an environmental assessment, so that's kind of the middle tier of the environmental documents. If, as we move forward with the project, if there's anything significant in terms of environmental that comes up, it could elevate it to an environmental impact statement, but for now it's still we're assuming an environmental assessment, and that's what the public hearing will be based on.
Okay, and then one more question. Is the Dead Runs project with the Corps of Engineers being folded into this same document, or do they have a separate document?
So the Corps of Engineers had a feasibility study that they did back in 2016, I believe, and they have their own environmental assessment associated with that project. The Corps of Engineers is leading the flood control efforts for the channel project, and then 33rd Street and 48th Street are being led by the city, and then the NRD has some other components in there as well.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Councilperson Rabel.
So Chris, in light of the fact of the increasing construction cost, are there contingency plans or discussions on this project to probably try to break it up into chunks and phase it in? Or by breaking it up into phases, is that just exacerbating and increasing the costs over the entire scope of the project?
Yeah, that's something that we have to look at. We haven't looked at the project phasing yet, but cash flow will be something that we definitely look at. We're going to be going after federal grants, so hopefully there'll be some that match the timing of this project that we can utilize as well. And coordinating, even though the Dead Man's Run project is a separate project than the RTSD project, where they overlap, for example, the 33rd Street bridge structure, we're kind of taking a look at it of just making sure that we're maximizing every taxpayer dollar, whether that's a core dollar, a federal FHWA dollar, a state dollar, a local dollar, making sure that we are utilizing those funds and getting the best value out of that. So for like the 33rd Street Bridge from a hydraulic and a transportation perspective.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? Chris, we're not voting on anything to do with the roadway or RTSD. We're just voting on a land use plan.
Correct, yeah. They're kind of all tied together.
Yeah.
So I was just giving you an update on where we are with all of that.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward and speak on this? Okay. Would you like to rebut at all, David? Okay. We can move on.
Item 5E is approving the consent to a transfer of control of franchise between the City of Lincoln and Allo Communications.
Mr. Moline. Thank you for coming down.
Well, thank you for having me.
So what we have in front of us is approving a consent to transfer, correct? The whole franchise at this point?
Yes, it's actually the next evolution of our company, expanding it so that we can continue to invest in Lincoln, other communities in Nebraska, as well as the region. And Nelnet will drop below 50%. The new investors will be below 50% as well. But to continue on doing what we do.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Moline? I think most of us read what we had before, so we kind of understand how the transfer is going forward. And I don't see anybody with any concerns at this point.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come forward? We need you to exit that way.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks for the drink.
Oh, darn it.
My best Vanna White.
What did Ben
I was going to say, Mr. Councilman Shob, you're doing a great job directing the traffic.
Thank you over there, Ben. Would anybody else like to come forward to speak on item 5E at this time? Okay, seeing none, let's move on.
Item 5F, authorizing the city's Department of Aging to seek a grant from the Nebraska DOT for the replacement of a multi-passenger bus for use in transporting seniors in the community.
Director Jones.
Good afternoon, Council. Randy Jones, Director of Department of Aging, also known as Aging Partners. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
This resolution is a requirement of the Department of Transportation so that we can apply for a grant to replace one of our aging and now disabled vehicles for transporting passengers. DOT would cover 80% of the cost of the van. We would cover matching of 20%. We're also, for the balance of the 20%, which is 13 grand, we would utilize reappropriated funds or funds from the general community that we're raising.
Do we have any questions for Director Jones?
Thank you.
Seeing none. Is there anybody else like to come forward to speak on the item of a grant for transportation? Seeing none, let's move on to, that ends our resolutions, right?
Voting.
So we go to voting on the resolutions. So we'll go ahead and call the items. Sony?
Item 5A, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20001, application of the Urban Development Director to amend the 2040 Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan to adopt the City of Lincoln Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan, introduced by Washington. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by, been here, by Councilperson Washington?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions or thoughts?
I
Okay,
would like to move motion to amend number 1 at the request of the council chair. And it is, I will read it. I hereby move to amend the Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan to strike and replace the section's selected text on page 84 of the plan with the following language. Reducing land cost, new site development. The current process for lot development places most of the cost on the developer, who then passes the cost through rental rates or home purchase. The developer must cover their costs. Strategies should be targeted to increase the affordability of new housing developments through increased funding the extension of public infrastructure, roads, water, and sewer, to facilitate growth in the number, type, and variability of housing. Additionally, developments should use these programs as efficiently as possible. It is important to note these strategies should apply to all housing development projects, but would be especially desired for those that emphasize higher density developments or innovative medium density above 6 units per acre, projects that address what is often referred to as the missing middle housing. Shared costs. The public share might be 30 to 50% of construction costs. Repayment is derived from the added property taxes created by new development. The city has precedents for this, sharing some costs of infrastructure when the units have been affordable, but has no established program. Under a standardized program, shared costs of up to 50% of the new site development infrastructure should occur when final sale price of the units at that development area are at or below the median cost of existing homes in the market area. So that's my motion.
been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Shob. Do we have any comments or questions regarding this motion to amend? I could make some. I believe this motion, yeah. Did you want to talk? I can start and then you can go. This motion really just gets to bringing out what some of what we heard earlier tonight, that we don't exclude any group of housing. The middle housing, the 80% and above AMI is basically being excluded in this plan until we bring some mention of it in here. And for me, all this does is shows that, and it mentions the missing middle housing, the 80% and above. And the plan really says that throughout. It does say in there that we need to work on the missing middle, and there's a break in the system right now if we don't focus on it. So all this is really doing is bringing awareness to that other housing part in the plan. And it's not bringing any resolutions or ordinances forward. It's just part of a comp plan at this point. So I'd like to have this brought forward just so we can all be on the same ship and going the right way on this. I just believe that this will really keep us as one community and not say there's certain types of housing or parts of the community that have precedence over others. And I want to keep our community one. We've grown up with that. We're all pulling for the same thing. I think we do good things in this community. Yes, Jane?
Well, I want to quote Ann Post. I think she said it correctly. This amendment and the things that are before us, the conversation about housing in our community, the needs of housing for our community, don't end with this amendment, don't end with another amendment that will be introduced or with this plan. Because we all recognize that providing housing, addressing the housing needs of our community is multi-layered. There's different levels of housing, from the subsidized housing, housing that has low-income housing tax credit, to affordable, and then on to more market rate housing. I think what this motion to amend, that I will not support, talks about offering subsidies to a type of market of housing that has already been well established. So for example, the plan talks about over the past 6 years, construction activity has been healthy, but focused on single-family detached units and market rate apartments and market rate housing. The amendment would ask for these same type of subsidies that would allow developers to receive public subsidies amounting to half of the total cost of construction for doing what they're already doing, building market rate housing. And I don't believe that the plan that was presented to us is talking about housing affordability. We know housing is a complicated, complex issue, but our focus in the plan is on affordable housing, and I can address that more in detail with the second amendment that will be proposed.
Okay. Councilperson Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have spoken with the folks who have brought this amendment forward. I've done a lot of reading, and I've talked to people who are working on the Affordable Housing Task Force. The main focus of this affordable housing plan has been on housing for residents earning less than 80% of area median income, or about $46,000 a year. The goal of this plan from the initial RFP until the close of public comment has been on finding ways to bring safe and decent housing to those in our community most in need. I am not in favor of splitting the community, and I don't believe this plan divides the community in any way, but it does target our actions on folks who are having a very hard time finding affordable housing. I am in complete agreement with the plan as it is presented. Resolving our community's need for safe and decent affordable housing will take the input and creativity of everyone: private developers, community organizers, lenders, philanthropists, and the city. And I think the coordinated action plan lays out a number of good strategies to get us there. In closing, I would just say that just because this plan does not talk about affordability in the greatest degree does not mean that the city does not see a value in a discussion about affordability. As Councilwoman Raybold has said, it is a complicated issue and it does need to be addressed.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, let's call the roll on the motion to amend.
Washington,
No.
Ward,
No.
Bowers,
No.
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Raybold,
No.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes. Motion failed, correct?
Motion failed.
4-3.
Correct.
And more discussion, Ms. Washington?
I would like to bring a motion to amend number 2, and it's very simple. So I'll just say motion to amend number 2 and see if there's a second.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. The motion to amend, as I distributed before the meeting is, and I sent to everyone this morning, I hereby move to amend the Affordable Housing Coordinated Action Plan to add the following language on page 92. As we chart the future of Lincoln's growth, housing affordability in all sectors should be addressed within the Lincoln-Lancaster County 2050 Comprehensive Plan. And I offer this amendment because the Lincoln Realtors Association has consistently raised the need to address the affordability and availability of housing at all price points. And so because I know it is a complicated issue, I encourage the conversation as part of the comprehensive plan. And I think now, even though the plan has already started, is a good time to have that conversation because we're talking right now about growth tiers.
Yes. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Ms. Raybold.
Well, I intend to support this motion to amend, but again, the conversation does not end here. We need to talk about the issues that have been brought up by the Home Builders Association. We need to look at the issues that have been brought by realtors, and we need to look at the issues brought by RIOMA. So this is the beginning of a dialogue. We're focused right now on affordable housing, and the issues were very clear in the action plan items. It says we have to preserve the existing affordable rental units, improve rental housing quality, make the development of affordable housing through programs like low-income housing tax credits more appealing, and increase the mobility in the market through expanded housing options, especially for retirees, seniors, and young professionals, implement strategies for sharing risk in the development of affordable housing, ensure policies and codes support affordable housing. I mean, this is a big step in the right direction, and we want it to be more comprehensive, but we have an action plan that we can implement right here, right now, and all the participants and the stakeholders, including the Home Builders Association and as well as realtors, we all recognize we want and need workforce housing, affordable housing for our growing community. But that doesn't mean we're going to just ignore all the other issues they've raised. The issues they've raised are very real and very important. You know, we need to have more housing of all different types. And does that mean we start looking at tax increment financing on the perimeter of our city to create more varied types of housing, but allow these developers to do it at an expedited rate and something that makes sense for them. So this is the beginning of a great conversation, a conversation that we need to take on and embrace, and I certainly support this motion to amend because we want to continue that dialogue. It doesn't end from this single amendment or this single conversation. We're going to keep working on the whole comprehensive plan.
Yes, Councilperson Christensen.
This is kind of a rhetorical question, but it says that it should be addressed within the Lincoln-Lancaster County 2050 Comprehensive Plan. Will that really be discussed? Will it really be addressed? And in my experience in the past, once something goes into the comp plan, the book is shut and we treat it like it was the Bible and we were all religious fanatics. No change is allowed. So I will be thrilled if I am wrong. But based on past experience, this is what I expect. This will be the end of the conversation.
It can't be. It
Okay,
just can't be.
Councilperson Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I look forward to the conversation. I'm going to support amendment number 2, but I really appreciated the follow-up since our last meeting from the home builders. I had a really good discussion with their president, Herb Reese, and so I appreciate that. And while we may disagree on the First Amendment, I too want the community to move forward. I think we all do. I think we're all in that same place, and I don't see it as the end, but the beginning. And just to reiterate what's already been said from the dais, we have a plan, and I think we need to keep moving forward and keep that discussion open. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Thank you. I think part of my problem on this, and it's this motion to amend too is fine, and I like it, and we're going to put the pressure on, and we're going to go forward. And I know, talking with the other colleagues around the table there, we're willing to put in some hard work on this.
Yep.
We're willing to be part of it and not to let this sit. But you're right. Sometimes they do end up on the shelf. I think my biggest problem on this is when we came forward with the RFP or came forward and said we're going to do an affordable housing plan. We're coming forward and we're going to hire this big consultant to come in and do an affordable housing. I thought it would include everything. I thought personally it would include all levels of affordable housing, all the way from the low AMI of 60% all the way up to 120%. And how can we keep housing affordable in Lincoln as we've seen it's growing, like most cities around the country. Housing's going up, and it's going up quicker than incomes. And how can we continue to keep Lincoln a good, safe, and affordable town to live in? But when I was told that no, it doesn't take into consideration, and it wasn't designed to take into consideration anything over 80% of AMI, or the middle income, or the workforce development, for people that were the workforce housing. It really didn't get into that. It was mostly for this. So that was the reason I think some of us were disappointed that this plan didn't really cover what we thought it was going to cover. And so we're going to have to take the next step. We're going to have to go forward and try to get this pushed forward, that we can look at workforce housing, other type of housing, affordable housing across the board. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my pledge to everybody. I'll work hard at it. We'll stay on top of it. We won't let David Carey sneak out the back of the room.
Doesn't look like he's sneaking out.
He's not trying to sneak out, but he's hanging close to the door. So, any other comments or questions at this time? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll.
Raybold?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Now the main motion.
Bowers?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Washington?
Yes.
Schob?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
I think we should clap and then take a pledge.
I
Aye.
promise
I pledge.
to work on
Yes.
housing.
To do my best to do my
Clean and
duty.
good thought and deed or something.
Yes.
We all have kind of ideas that we can talk
Like
about
a lot
moving
of work
forward.
and some concessions and some out-of-the-box thinking.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, okay, let's move on to the next item.
Item 5B, approving the labor contract between the City of Lincoln and the Lincoln M-Class Employees Association for a term effective August 20, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. Introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Ward. Yeah. I don't know, you being right there has really caused me a lot of problems this year.
Sorry, I know.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, let's call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5C is approving the labor contract between the City of Lincoln and the Lincoln Firefighters Association for a term effective August 20, 2020 through August 31st, 2021. Introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Christensen. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ward,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5D, Comprehensive Plan Amendment 20002, application of the Planning Director to amend the 2040 Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan to adopt the 33rd and Cornhusker Sub-Area Plan, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Ward. Any comments or questions? The only one on here I have is, I think some of these uses might be a little more energetic than what they are, but he said it's a guide, and as long as it doesn't affect the property rights or the uses that are there now or in the future, I mean, if this plan takes 10 years, 15 years to raise the money to do the railroad and everything, if someone has a property that they want to redevelop, I don't want them to come back and say, oh, well, that doesn't fit our comprehensive plan land use ideas. So I just want to say that and put that out there, that I'll keep an eye on this. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5E is approving the consent to a transfer of control of franchise between the City of Lincoln and Allo Communications, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Ward. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 5F is authorizing the city's Department of Aging to seek a grant from the Nebraska DOT for the replacement of a multi-passenger bus for use in transporting seniors in the community, introduced by Washington.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold. Any comments or questions?
This is a really good thing.
A bus for seniors.
Yes.
A
We're
new
all getting
bus.
there one day at a
A
time.
new bus is good. Okay, please call a roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. Now we can move on to public hearing ordinances, second reading, related resolutions.
I'll be calling items 6A and 6B together. Annexation 20012, application of Matotal LLC to annex approximately 21.45 acres of property generally located at South 94th and Van Dorn Streets, and the related change of zone 17030C, application of Matotal LLC for a change from AG Agriculture District to R3 PUD. Planned unit development for expansions of an existing PUD and associated waivers on property generally located at South 94th and Van Dorn Streets.
Yes.
Well, good evening, council members. Feels like it's been a while, but, and I forgot my stocking cap.
Oh, you've been naughty.
Yeah, keep me honest. So I'm here before you this evening on behalf of Matt et al. They are the owners of a project, Wandering Creek. And they are bringing forward a expansion of that PUD and annexation request that is in accordance with the plan that has been developed for the property. It's very simple, I think. Residential area has been added, as well as the beginning of a commercial center for the property. It had been contemplated in concept for the development plan of the entire ownership parcels, and we're bringing in the next phase. So you can see now here the development area that has been previously annexed. Mostly it's shaded gray here with single family and attached and detached units, and then multifamily in the west. So you kind of flip over to the eastern side of the property, where Van Dorn is along the southern edge and 98th here along the future eastern edge. And so the neighborhood commercial center, the base or overlay zone of B2, We are asking for 2 waivers in that particular area. There is a garden center that has been identified, and we're asking for a reduction in parking, primarily because they are seasonal in nature for the retail, and they utilize a lot of that building space for grow areas and storage, and not fully utilized as retail. So we worked with the planning department to come up with a 1 to 600 plus some additional parking requirements for the employees. In addition to that, we are asking for a height waiver from 40 feet to 50 feet to help accommodate in particular uses such as office buildings and the neighborhood center. So with that, like I said, I think it's pretty straightforward, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have for me this evening.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Marshall? Yes, Councilperson Washington.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Can you give us just a quick overview of the existing neighbors? Like, so when you ask for the height waiver from 40 to 50, let's talk a little bit about who might be affected by this.
Sure, absolutely. So right now, I'm going to mark, there's to the west of this development, there's an acreage that was kind of sat into this. That will be developed. Right now, it has not proceeded with the development of that area. It has been purchased by Matadol, and I think it had been rented back to the owners for some time, and I think that's coming to the near end of that lease. So that would be the immediate neighbors to the west. Across the street to the south is Firethorn Golf Course. That is what it is today. And then to the east would be additional commercial center, what has been designated as commercial center all the way to 98th Street. So those would be the primary residences or owners that would be in the vicinity that would be impacted by that height waiver.
Okay.
Anybody within that, there are some residences that are being brought on. With this approval, they would know that height waiver had been granted for that particular area.
Right, in advance. Thank you.
No problem.
You talk about conceptual neighborhood commercial for Block 44. Is that owned by the same owner?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so it's just calling it conceptual because it is outside of the area that we have brought in for annexation. We had not presented any type of site-specific information for that particular area quite yet. And then we add these incrementally with annexations, they are reviewed by the planning department and LTU and other departments.
Okay. Are you, on the concept of the commercial, would that be something you think would come in this coming year?
Hard to say. We have moved forward with this one because there is a tenant that is wanting to move forward with business at this location, and I mean, I hope I am and before you again for more annexation and the future growth of this development, but it's hard to tell right now. Everything's really hard to tell right now what the future brings.
What's the timing of 98th Street? You know I asked that, Brad.
I thought I was going to get off easy this evening. I really can't say that with any high confidence right now as to what the timing is. There is an application that has been submitted, and so we have been keeping an eye on that with just that, some of those questions that we have as to what 98th Street is. I believe that there was a timeline that that 98th Street could be paved by 2022, but that was to be done by the county, and the county funding, I just don't know the answer to that. I wish I did. If you find out, please let me know. I'll do the same to you.
Okay.
But not not as part of this project, I can say that. Van Dorn is paved, and so the development is continuing to move easterly or northerly, and eventually we'll get to 98th and have to address that.
I've been out there a few times, and you're digging a lot of basements, and it's a hot, popular area. I'm just wondering if you start selling homes down along 98th Street as a gravel road, it's not going to make people too happy down there, so.
The annexation does touch upon the development potential, as how close we can come without doing any type of improvements to 98th Street. You're right, the development's been going very well. We're very happy with that. Hopefully, that's a good problem to have to address in the future.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Marshall? Okay. Anybody else like to come forward on items 6A and or 6B?
Thank you.
Seeing none, we can move on to 6C. That'd be a David Carey presenting that one.
Calling item 6C and 6D together, change of zone 20033, application of Linda and Tori Ann Nielsen and LA Real Estate LLC for a change from R4 Residential District to RC Residential District on property generally located at 2300, 2310, and 2330 Y Street, and the related development and conditional zoning agreement between the city and LA Real Estate LLC to allow construction of a multifamily housing on the property generally located at 2300, 2310, and 2330 Y Street.
Good evening, David Carey, Director of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Department. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. We did coordinate today. This was an item that was on the consent agenda. Does not have any opposition that we are aware of. And so I agreed that I would represent them, not represent them, but to provide the information about their application today. What you have before you is a fairly straightforward change of zone from R4 to R6 for the intention to be able to put a 12-plex on these 3 lots. I will show you the general area. This is Y Street, 23rd Street here. The outlined 3 lots are what we are discussing for a change of zone. I will note that to the south side of Y Street, there is existing R6 zoning. There also is R6 zoning, which would be off to the east over by 27th Street as well. Staff has looked at this and determined that the inclusion of R6 zoning on the north side of Y Street does make sense here. It allows for some redevelopment to occur, which is part of our strategy for the comprehensive plan. I will also flip this over so that you are able to see the proposal. This shows the 12-plex in this footprint here. One of the main things that was agreed to as part of that zoning agreement that also goes along with this change of zone is that we're requiring the paving of the alley, because the access off the alley to the parking that will be required with this project is an important piece to this. It does make it a better project, and those terms have been agreed to. So with that, I can answer any questions you might have, but again, this was passed unanimously, recommending approval to you by the Planning Commission, and we are in support of it.
Okay. And this is just a redevelopment or it's not a redevelopment agreement. It's just a zoning
This is just a zoning action for change. This is
right.
not
It
yet.
doesn't have anything to do with TIF or anything else.
Not at this time, no.
Lumberyard to housing.
Just more housing in the area. My son actually lived down the street. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Carey? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Is there anybody that'd like to come forward on this issue? As we scan the neighborhood, you don't see anything? Okay. So that's the end of our public hearing, correct?
All right.
We can move on to ordinances, third reading, related resolutions.
Item 7A is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter C by creating the classifications of operations analyst and transit dispatcher, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Schob. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington, McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7B is amending the pay schedule for the employee group whose classifications are assigned to the pay range prefixed by the letter C by deleting the classification for planning assistant, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Christensen. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7C, amending the pay schedules for certain employee groups by allowing a one-time lump sum payment for employees whose classifications are assigned to the pay ranges prefixed by the letter W, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7D, amending the pay schedules for certain employee groups by allowing a one-time lump sum payment for employees whose classifications are assigned to the pay ranges prefixed by the letter E, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Washington. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7E, amending the pay schedules for certain employee groups by allowing a one-time lump sum payment for employees whose classifications are assigned to the pay ranges prefixed by the letter X, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7F, amending Chapter 2.76 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to the personnel system by amending Section 2.76.385, funeral leave to clarify the language when funeral leave is allowed for certain employees, and repealing Section 2.76.385 as hereto existing, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Christensen. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Washington,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7G, amending Chapter 2.76 of the Lincoln Municipal Code relating to the personnel system by amending Section 2.76.405, absent without leave to clarify the language, and repealing Section 2.76.405 as hereto existing, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Washington. Any other comments, questions? Please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7H, change of zone 20031, application of Garcilia Diaz de Leon Garza from R2 Residential District to R4 Residential District on property generally located at 131 Northwest 22nd Street, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ward,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0. Item 7I, ordinance approving an interlocal agreement with Lancaster County to reorganize the governance structure for and approve articles of dissolution of District Energy Corporation, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Christensen. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Raybold,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Hold for a second till we get Tammy back. She recused herself from that vote. She went that way. I think Sandra was just trying to get out of here.
Yeah, I thought we were
Says
going to
exit.
Exit. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, go ahead, Sony, and call the last one.
Item 7J, authorizing the issuance of tax allocation bonds for the terminal building redevelopment project in amount not to exceed 3.9 million, introduced by Ward.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded by Councilperson Raybold.
I was going to bring it back.
Take some water there, Tammy. Any other questions or comments? This is a good thing. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Schob,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
And that ends our voting session.
Section 8 is resolutions first reading are items 8A through 8F. 9 is pending list items, 9A through 9C.
Okay. Now we're at the public comment.
We light still here?
So there's nobody here for the public comment portion. We do have
2 Zoomers.
some Zoom members. Is that correct, Sony?
Correct.
Okay.
You want to start with first one?
Vic, are you available?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, members of the council. I am here. My name is Vic Clafter. I am here as a representative of the Collaborative Collective Impact Lincoln. I am a staff member of Nebraska Appleseed, and I'm submitting a letter that has been signed on by a number of local nonprofit organizations for you all in this public comment. So this summer, this governing body allowed community members to testify virtually during public comment. Many community members and organizations applauded this decision. It provided a much-needed and accessible avenue for people to voice concerns about important issues amid a pandemic. We thank you for allowing virtual access for public comment for the meetings on December 14th and 21st. However, this provision does not fully meet the needs and desires of our community members for transparent and accessible interaction with their city leaders. Allowing it somewhat sporadically, instead of making a commitment to ongoing virtual access for public comment and agenda items, can also contribute to community members' confusion about how to engage with the commenting process, even though we know that is not your intention, but it does that rather than establishing trust and an open forum. We, the undersigned, believe it is reasonable and necessary to allow virtual access to testify for both public comment and agenda items permanently. The risk of COVID-19 transmission remains, as it has for weeks now, in the red zone of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department's risk dial. Although we hope for decreased transmission, experts are not anticipating any significant reduction anytime soon, a significant reduction that would bring us out of the red zone entirely. In this public health crisis, not allowing virtual testimony sends the message that our neighbors, and especially our elderly and immunocompromised community members, must put their health on the line to make their voice heard beyond sending an email. The email option is appreciated, but it is unfortunately a spotty system for ensuring every comment is actually heard by each of you. The risk of coronavirus transmission isn't the only reason we believe a permanent reinstatement of this option is good and necessary. The process for testifying at City Council needs to be as understandable and accessible as possible in and out of a public health crisis. Physically getting oneself to the chambers at the right time for as long as one might need to wait is a significant and often insurmountable barrier for too many Lincolnites. Young children, work schedules, and disabilities are real parts of people's lives that pose an obstacle to testifying physically. This is meaningfully remedied by virtual access. We sincerely thank all the city staffers who did the work to make it a reality previously and now call upon the council to make this option a sustained fixture at its meetings. Transparent accountability to your constituents is crucial to build the type of trust that sustains and builds community. We ask you to honor the people we all seek to serve, who have been pushed to the margins, by using all the reasonably available options for those same people to voice their concerns on the public record. We understand that opening these channels stretched your staff's capacity and lengthened the time spent in meetings. However, the right response to a bottleneck effect of outcry is not to close the door. We believe the right response is to open it wider keep it open, and act in accordance with your best judgment on the concerns expressed. Finally, the undersigned organization Collective Impact Lincoln extends an offer to City Council members and staff to help think through ways to make these platforms most effective for community and council members and least draining on the time and energy of our dedicated city staff. Respectfully signed, Collective Impact Lincoln, Nebraska Appleseed, South of Downtown Community Development Organization, Civic Nebraska, Renters Together, ACLU of Nebraska, Inclusive Communities, RISE, YWCA Lincoln, University Place Community Organization, and Cause Collective. And I'm happy to, I will send this all to each of you and to council packet for your reference as well. But if anyone has any questions right now, I'm happy to take them. Absolutely, thank you.
Okay. We have another one.
I don't believe Miss Salas is here, but I will still call her name just in case. Isabel Salas, are you available? We do not have her on.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say to everyone listening and everyone here, Merry Christmas. Remember the golden rule, and I move adjournment.
Second.
There we go. Been moved and second that we adjourn the meeting for Christmas
All right, all the winter holidays.
and all the holidays.
Yeah.
Please call the roll.
Christensen,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
Your
We
solstice.
stand adjourned.
Yes.
We missed a conjunction.